Alright, so we have game 2 of the match. This one is with Adventures and with Nocturne. So right off the bat, I'll tell you this game was an absolute grind. It took a very long time to play. So we'll take our time and go through this as much as possible, as best as possible. So we have Bonfire on the board, which is some nice trashing. There's Exorcist as well, and like I told you, can't resist the Exorcist. We have also Mr. Goat, so things will be very fast. I can get rid of this estate straight away here and go for a Bonfire to get things rolling very, very quickly. The Exorcist hopefully will convert one of these estates into a Will-O-Wisp, and then I'm looking at picking up some giants actually. So looking at the board, initially my plan was to go mass giant and just break everything in my opponent's deck. On 5 he went for Sacred Grove straight away. I think that's right. It is also what I end up doing on my first 5. The plus buy is precious here, and Sacred Grove is the only source of it. So I think that is the correct way to go with regard to this board. Now, my deck is very, very thin. I'll happily take this gold here that came up via the Sacred Grove because I am quickly running out of money. The gold should be a welcome addition to the deck at this point, and I can use my Exorcist to trash this estate into a Wisp. The reason why I want a Wisp is not really to draw things, but because there's Imp around, right? Once there's Exorcist, there's Imp around, so Imp relies on finding an action that isn't already in play, and if I just have the one Wisp, then that's not another target for the Imp, so it makes getting lots of Imps not so bad. Because it is possible to have too many Imps, then you just have a handful of Imps and you don't know what to do with it, then you look like an Imp if you have that many Imps. Anyways, Pixie for my opponent, he doesn't take the trashing ability, but he gives me another Wisp here with Grove, so yeah, we'll have it. 3 things. Delicious, nutritious, 3 things. So I also have a Grove now on my first 5, but I had more than 5, but I went for the Grove there to make use of my extra money, and Carriage for my opponent on his next 5 here. So the Carriage, yeah, I can see it. Actions is kind of an issue on this board. That's another thing that I noticed right away. Actions is a bit of an issue. The only way you can get multiple actions is via Royal Carriage. So if you carriage an Imp, not an Imp, sorry, a Pixie or a Wisp for example, then you get +2 actions. So another reason there for the Wisp. On 5 there, I go for a Den of Sin just to get the draw up and going. That could have been a Carriage. Maybe Carriage is better. Not entirely sure. My opponent gets to use his Carriage here on the Sacred Grove, which is very nice for him. And so it gets him a lot of money first of all, plus whatever benefit off of the boon should he choose to do so. And he picks up another Grove here and a Pixie with the extra money that he has. So here I can see everything, right? But only because I had a Den of Sin in place. So I'm gonna get one more Den of Sin, make sure the deck is nice and reliable, and then the plan should be to get one giant and all the Royal Carriages, and then just go smashing things from our side, and hopefully at some point use this Exorcist to pick up Imps and Ghosts maybe. I realized here a nice thing with the Knights, some of the Knights anyway, that gain to hand, is that I could have gained that Den of Sin to hand, which I did, and then use the Exorcist on it straight away. I mean, that's just something to keep in mind. The Devil's Workshop doesn't come to hand, but the Den of Sin does. So that's just something I noticed with the Nocturne cards there. I could have used it to gain a Ghost. Maybe that's better. I don't know. But I wanted to have a nice, stable, symmetrical, because I'm obsessive like that draw thing, going one Den of Sin each turn. So lots of Sacred Groves for my opponent. He uses Royal Carriage on the Wisp there to get 2 actions. So he can play his Grove twice. And he goes for more Royal Carriages as well as a Den of Sin here. And he's able to use his Exorcist to trash a Silver to gain an Imp. So that is also something I should be looking to do. I thought about it last turn, but I did not have, I didn't want to, rather, I didn't want to trash the silver because I wanted to use that money to buy things. We'll see here if it is possible for me to finally trash the silver and get an imp off of it. I think so because I'm able to use my Royal Carriage on the Sacred Grove, so I have lots of money from that, so I don't need to keep the silver around. 10 here is a comfortable amount for me. 12 isn't that much better, I feel. So like I said, it should be either like double carriage or carriage giant, and I do go for carriage giant. As I mentioned before, the aim for me is to go smashing things out of my opponent's deck with reckless abandon. And you can do that if you have lots and lots of Royal Carriages. You also need some draw, so Storyteller also draws here, but I went for the Dens of Sin instead. Storyteller was a bit awkward to work with here because you had to make sure and see that early. You don't want to play a couple giants and then use your Storyteller, or waste half that money to draw cards, and then play some more giants. It was a bit awkward in my mind to use the Storyteller here, and well, we've used Storyteller already. Let's see how good Den of Sin is. Den of Sin is apparently decent. Getting 2 cards at the start of your turn is very helpful, but we know that anyway. So seeing my opponent, my opponent, he also goes for a giant here. Picks up a Den of Sin and a spare pixie. A spare pixie. So here you see the Imp Wisp thing coming into play. It just gives me a bit more options, right? Like the Storyteller, I would like to see my Royal Carriages early, so that I can put them on the mat and have the most most flexibility of when to use the Royal Carriages, or rather what actions to use the Royal Carriage on. So I call one on what here? A Wisp, and then I call the other on the Giant, and I go killing my opponent's silver, which isn't that bad for him, honestly. Again, I refrain from trashing any of my treasures here because I feel like 15 and 3 buys is a very, very good price point. Gets me another den, another carriage, another giant. So that giant should have been another carriage. I forgot how Royal Carriage works, apparently. You just need, ideally, you just need the 1 copy of the action you want to play over and over. And you need lots of Royal Carriages. So you need like 1 bridge and then 5 Royal Carriages. You don't need multiple bridges. You need multiple Royal Carriages. So that second giant is a bit superfluous and inaccurate. Inaccurate, I believe. Should have been a Royal Carriage there. So another nice thing I noticed with the Imp and these brown cards, tan cards, what are they called? Reserve cards. The reserve cards is that I can play Imp and then chain the Royal Carriage to the Imp. And if I play another Imp, I can chain it to another Royal Carriage because the Royal Carriage disappears from play. That's nice. That's quite nice. Usually Imp doesn't like duplicate action cards, but it's okay with the reserve cards because they vanish, they go in the mat. So Transmogrify will disappear and Royal Carriage will disappear, so you can chain it to those things again. Anyways, so now I'm using the Imp for draw just to make sure I can draw everything, and I do so. Stick the what are these things called? Carriages on the mat. So you see here the difference already, right? Had one of these giants been a carriage, I'd have been able to play my Grove and my Giant 3 times, as opposed to just, well, I am still able to play it 3 times, but having the carriage is more flexible, I think. It's just better than having the spare giant. So I am attacking my opponent a bit more than he's attacking me. Here I only have the 2 buys. I believe I had 3 buys last time because I turned up a good boon. I could have called the Royal Carriage again on the Grove, but I wanted to hold it back for the Giant to go smashing things. And here finally, after how many turns? 10 turns? It's not that long, but still kinda long. I trashed the goal to pick up a Ghost finally. a ghost. I was very excited by the ghost. I expected it to do a lot of work, but it was actually quite awkward here. The ghost was actually quite awkward. My opponent also has a ghost. I think he picked up his ghost before me, and I was jealous. And I thought, well, this absolutely cannot stand. I have to get a ghost too. I'm joking, obviously. I wanted the ghost just to try it out, as probably he did there. So, anyways, another imp for my opponent, I believe. No, he discarded an imp. Never mind. He discarded an imp, but I think he has one more imp than me. So he has two imps. I only have the one imp. I would love to have, um, two imps, but I only have the one. And he gains another ghost here. I'm like, man, no, what are you doing? You're killing me. So here I transmogrify one of the Royal Carriages for a Sacred Grove because he killed mine with his giant. Again, that I should have turned the giant, the spare giant I had, into the grove instead of my precious Royal Carriage. But, you know, bad things happen when you're dumb, so what can you do? And this turn is looking a lot like the last turn here, right? So I get my couple carriages done. I play my grove importantly for the plus buy. I use the boon to pick up another transmogrify. Transmogrify is nice. It saves your turn sometimes. Like, it's probably better at saving your turn than guide, for example, because you could just, you know, change something into something and kick off suddenly, or get points or whatever. It's a very nice card to have sitting on your mat there. Alright, a couple more giant plays come out. I go smashing things, giving them curses sometimes. Again, carriage. I pick up another grove because this is the awkward thing with the ghost, right? So if I had picked up two carriages as I intended to there, the ghost would have found only the carriages and would have played a carriage twice, which does nothing for me. Absolutely nothing. So instead, I had to go for a 50-50. I did want the carriage. I wanted both carriages because I realize now that I'm doing stupidness by buying multiple action cards and not concentrating on the carriages. But that means that my ghost would do nothing for me. It would give me a couple extra actions, which I don't really care for. I would much rather play like giant twice or grove twice, but playing carriage twice is not so exciting. So I bought the sacred grove so that there would be a 50-50 shot of it finding the grove. It didn't find the grove, which I was sad about, but I mean, I kind of asked for it. If I really wanted it to play grove twice, I should have just bought two groves, right? I should have just bought two groves, but no, I stand by I can even stand by double Royal Carriage, but not double Sacred Grove there. So I do get the extra actions as you see here, but the carriage just goes on the mat, and it's not like I can call another action. Once it goes on the mat, it's on the mat. I can't do more than that. This is not so good of a draw for me here. The Imp was at the bottom of the deck there, so I had to go digging for it for a while. Which is okay. I mean, I eventually get through everything. It's not like my deck is terribly unreliable. I'm pretty likely to see all the things that I want to see in a nice way here, given the setup I have with the two dens in play at each turn. My opponent has a bit more dens than me. Well, one more, but that's okay. I'm going ape on this man's deck. I kill a carriage and I give him another curse here. Very nice, very nice. And the game plan here for me is just to empty the carriages as much as possible here. More carriages for me is the better for me, the worse for my opponent. And I have a spare grove. I don't really care for a spare giant, but the grove I think is more important for the plus buy. And I can always get back a giant through transmogrify or something. Like this Exorcist is becoming a touch obsolete here. Although I can trash the curse with it. I could also trash the silver with it, and Imp is a far more attractive target than just removing a curse. I can get to the curse later. So here, again, the awkward thing with the ghost, right? It could find a Royal Carriage and play it twice. Luckily, I found that giant and played it twice because I bought carriage, giant. There was also an Imp there. So there was 2/3 that I wouldn't find the carriage. So luckily I found not carriage, found the giant. So That's cool. Here comes my opponent's giant. He managed to ghost his giant there, which is nice. And he gives me a curse. So with just the one carriage in the stack, I expect my opponent to buy it. Piles are coming down a bit low here, but we can't really buy empty the piles. That's what I'm saying. Buys are a premium here. Very difficult to get multiple buys. So even though they look very very thin, it's not volatile. Hey, look, I just invented our not invented, but came up with a term. Thinness of piles is not really the concern here. You're concerned about the volatility of the piles. How fast can they empty? So rats is a thick pile, but they can empty in one turn if you play rats a lot. Whereas that is a volatile pile. Look at that. You heard it here first, maybe. I don't know. Somebody else must have said it. Anyways, the carriages are gone. So I'm going to start buying provinces because there's nothing else to do on the board. There's nothing else to do on the board. And the provinces can't get destroyed by the giants anyway. And my opponent, he's already started on the provinces too. So I said, you know what? Let's go for this. Let's go for this. I would like to buy something like province action card so I could get this ghost rolling. But on this turn, I think I ended up with 24. 24 and 3 buys. I have no idea how I managed to do that. But we will take it. Definitely we'll take it. Triple province does make the ghost dead, but I'll live with it. I'll live with 18 points on a dead ghost. So here I call the carriage again just to get extra buys. I knew that a few giant plays were coming in, so I would want to make use of the extra money. And yeah, this is the turn where I do come for the 24, and on the next turn my opponent resigns the game here. Maybe he feels like, well, he can't get to 24, or I would be able to get to 24 again here and just buy 3 more provinces. I don't know. But I think he came out worse on the end of the giant beaten, so his deck was in a slightly worse shape than mine. Slightly worse shape than mine. And yeah, so as it turns out, there was a Will-O-Wisp at the top of the deck, so I don't even waste the Ghost there, which is great, right? I get to play the Wisp twice, which is not bad, honestly, at the start of your turn. Anyway, so this is game 2. We just went ham with the Giants, used Den for draw. Used Den of Sin for draw, and we managed to use Ghost, so that's something. Still not sure about how good Ghost is given the time it takes to buy it. Anyways, thanks for watching and see you.